According to the definition of the Project Management Institute (PMI), a stakeholder is an individual, group, or organization who may be affected by, or perceive itself to be affected by a decision, activity, or outcome of a project. The Association for Project Management (APM) also has a definition. Stakeholders are all those who, with an interest or role in the project, or who are impacted by the project. In both cases, the stakeholders have a vested interest in the outcome of the project. Development projects have many stakeholders, from the donor to the beneficiaries. They all have a vested interest in the outcome of the project. Here's a list of the most common types of project stakeholders. Depending on the type of project, the list might include other stakeholders. These are the donors, beneficiaries, partner organizations, community-based organizations, some local organizations, and even the local government. The need to classify stakeholders is due to the large number of stakeholders the project leader has to deal with. By classifying them into distinct groups, the project leader can manage the relationships with each group with a more precise strategy. All stakeholders are not created equal, so it's important that the approach to manage the relationships is according to the type of stakeholder. Every project leader needs to identify project stakeholders and determine their needs and expectations from the project. Not all stakeholders are the same, and their needs and expectations can vary significantly. Classifying stakeholders in groups helps the project leader have a better understanding of their preferences for communications, approach to relationships, type of interest, and relations with the project. Stakeholders can be classified using the following groups: internal and external, primary and secondary, and direct and indirect. Internal stakeholders operate entirely within the boundaries of the organization. They include groups such as the finance, procurement, human resources, administration, and other units of the organization that provide services and support to the project. Others include the steering committees, senior executives, and any other staff that may affect or be affected by the project. In many cases, the project leader needs to negotiate with internal stakeholders for the limited resources in the organization. External stakeholders include the donor, beneficiaries, partner organizations, local governments, local organizations, and other groups or individuals who may affect or be affected by the project. Another classification of stakeholder groups. Another classification of stakeholders groups them into direct and indirect. Direct stakeholders are those that are involved on a regular basis with the project. For example, beneficiaries that are actively involved and participate in many of the project activities. Another group are the partner organizations. They are involved in many of the project activities and require constant communications to coordinate the project work. Indirect stakeholders are those that have limited involvement in the day-to-day activities of the project, for example, suppliers of goods and services. Stakeholders are critical for the success of the project. As a project leader, it's not enough to manage the project constraints and deliver the project on time and under budget. The project leader has the responsibility to manage the relationship with the various stakeholders. Managing this relationship is difficult because the project leader has no direct authority over them and therefore must use leadership skills to build and sustain their interest and support to the project. This is especially true for key stakeholders that have a high level of influence or power on the project, such as donors, beneficiaries, partner NGOs, and even local government officials. Many projects fail because the stakeholders' expectations and interests are not sufficiently understood and managed. Note that the stakeholder management is synonymous with relationship management. The goal is to gain and sustain their commitment to the project. Managing relationships with the stakeholders requires some careful consideration of critical success factors that will ensure the relationships are meaningful and productive. These are some of the critical success factors. Open communications based on constructive dialogue are important to build relationships. The project leader needs to provide timely information that will help stakeholders make decisions. Honesty and transparency in all project actions. The project leader will make this a feature of all relationship with the stakeholders. Provide opportunities for participation and involvement in critical project decisions. They help build buy-in from stakeholders, empathy, and understanding that each stakeholder has different needs and concerns. Finally, trust is the foundation for all stakeholder relationships. Without trust, stakeholders will not be open to have a constructive relationship with the project. A project is deemed successful when it achieves its objectives and meets or exceeds the expectation of stakeholders. That means that success depends more on what the project stakeholders expect from the project. The project leader needs to take the time to identify all stakeholders before starting the project, understand their needs and concerns, and begin the process of building and sustaining strong relationships. Effective relationships ensure that all stakeholders contribute to the success of the project.